Thank you so much, Jeff, for inviting me to speak to SCION. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity to share my story and hopefully raise some awareness in and around mental health. What I want to do today is give you just a bit of background, kind of setting up the story of how I got to where I am, talk about some pre-diagnosis emotions that I was feeling, as well as some post-diagnosis emotions that I'm feeling now, and then round it out with some questions. So if you can bring up the slide, Melissa. And as Melissa is doing that, our story really starts right when I enlisted out of high school. I enlisted out of high school back in 2004. 04? No? Oh, okay. 2004. I wanted to join the Air Force because one, I wanted to travel and I wanted to get education. My first duty station was in Japan, so that was pretty awesome. But I really needed to work on my schooling. So the Air Force said, "Hey, we have an opportunity for you to go to the Air Force Academy." Slide, Melissa. So this is me still with hair on the left. This was my graduation photo at the academy. The photo at the bottom right hand is when I was still enlisted. But anyways, I commissioned in 2011 and then started I started my RPA job, right? I've always wanted to fly. My eyes weren't as good as some of my peers, and so they said, "Scott, you really can't like fly a manned aircraft, but we have developed a new pipeline for you to fly these RPAs. Civilians call them drones, but you'll see the size of the RPA, right?" So slide. There we go. And so these are the two RPAs. If you're looking to your left, the top left-hand corner is called the MQ-1 Predator. That was the first aircraft that I flew. This aircraft was more of a surveillance, so it would stay aloft a lot longer. We wouldn't go as fast just because we were trying to save on fuel, but essentially we were aloft for quite a long time. We started to put missiles. It can carry a max of 2 missiles, and these missiles are Hellfire missiles. So think of, they're the same missiles that the Black Hawk uses, right? They're different variants. The one that we normally use is a armor-piercing variant, just because the areas we fly, we encounter more tanks and more motorized vehicles. There are other variants of the Hellfire missile, such as if you're trying to blow up a building, we have a certain armament there. Below the MQ-1 is you have the MQ-9. Think of the MQ-9 as like the big brother, the big brother that plays football, and you really don't want to mess with this guy. This aircraft is all about it's a fighter type of aircraft, and so its engines are massive. It's a jet powered. It's a push propeller RPA, but its engine is much more powerful than its little brother. It carries about 3 or 4 times more missiles, and also carries a plethora of GBUs or bombs, guided bombs. The width or the wingspan of the MQ-9 is about just short of a standard runway. The height of a MQ-9 is about 2 school buses high. The little brother, the wingspan is right at a standard runway because it's a glider, and the height is about 1 bus high. So just to give you some comparison. So now I just want to take you on what does an RPA pilot do, right? And I'll explain the cockpit, if you will, on the right-hand side. So assuming if there's a war out there, there's probably an RPA that's flying. So we're 24/7 operations. So if you're flying a day shift, which is, let's say, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., you normally wake up around 5, maybe 4 a.m. to do a workout. But essentially at 5, you're heading on your way to the base. At 6 o'clock, you're actually on the base. And so one note here is we're actually here in the United States, right? We're here somewhere in Vegas, waking up with our family, going to work. We're not in Afghanistan. We're not downrange. We're not quote unquote deployed, but we're here. And so when I say on base, we're actually like, you know, in and around Vegas, going on base with our flight suits. From 6:30 to 7, you sign off some of your flight currencies. At 7 o'clock, we start our daily briefs. And sometimes the pilot or the crew is flying numerous RPAs in numerous AORs or areas of responsibilities. Think of that as different countries. So each of those briefings, you might have one in Afghanistan, which has its own separate ROEs, or when can I shoot a missile or when can I drop a missile, to another place, let's say like Turkey, where you're patrolling the border, and the ROE is more of a defensive role, and you're looking into, let's say, Syria. And so each of these briefings, you really have to absorb as much as you can, because come 8 o'clock, you are in the seat. You just relieved the overnight pilot, and you're in the seat flying, right? So into the seat, you're seeing this is a first generation GCS or ground control station. On the right-hand side, the left-hand person is the pilot in command. The right-hand person is an enlisted person, or you can call him or her as the sensor operator. They control the $1 million+ camera that make up the real reason for this aircraft and why it's in place. You can see all the screens that we're looking at, right? So put yourself in the left person's point of view, because that's normally my seat. If you look down at the bottom, you'll have 2 screens. Those are more of a gauge, right? You have so many gauges that you're seeing, such as oil pressure, aileron, flaps, so on and so forth. If you're looking straight is the HUD. You're actually looking outside of the aircraft. Sometimes you're looking like a normal aircraft, you're looking like at the horizon. Sometimes you're looking at the ball itself. So if you look at the HUD, you may be seeing the ground because you're looking at the ball. Above that is like a Google Maps. Where are you at in a certain airspace? From the Google Maps, if you turn to the left, you have 2 separate screens. The bottom screen there is a SIPRNet, so secret internet, and the top screen there is the really, really secret or top secret screens. that's where most of our ground assets we talk to, because the people who we support are those special task forces that have the need for an RPA to be over them, right? It's crazy because I've talked to some Army folks, just regular Army folks, and we may be tasked to them, right, for just Overwatch. And sometimes they say, Scott or Captain Mendoza, I thank you so much for doing what you do, because to be honest, if we don't have you above us, we don't go anywhere, right? And so it's to put yourself as a person on the ground. Would you rather have someone overwatching you in your position or not? And so I get it. And so you are actually in the seat. Sometimes you fire a missile or you drop a missile. So by the end of your flight at 4 p.m., you take another about 2 hours to write up your report, your after action report, that's what we call it. Where was the aircraft when you shot the missile? What was the weapons effects of the aircraft? And let me stop there, weapons effects. So normal aircraft, whenever they drop a missile, they kind of peel off, right, to go back for a reattack. They don't really have, they can't zoom in, if you will, because they're flying an aircraft. For us, we're able to zoom in. Why? Because I'm actually the one flying the aircraft, and my sensor operator is the one zooming in on the target. So it is very, very likely that when we shoot or drop a missile, we're seeing blood and guts everywhere, right? And that's where that whole PTSD thing starts to take place. So from this mindset of we're actually deployed, we get done with the flight. We're now transported back to the U.S. In Nevada. We do our proper paperwork, and we go home. It only takes 30 minutes to an hour for us to go home. Most of our missions are classified. So you go home to your families, and what is one of the first things that you normally say? Hey, how was your day? I don't know, I check the news. You really can't say, because everything is top secret, right? And if you do, then, well, you become you're violating a lot of rules. And you go to sleep, and you have to do this thing you have to do this routine the next day. So the emotions that you actually have to kind of dig a ditch and just pack those emotions down. Because why? Well, the Air Force doesn't have too many RPA pilots, right? Most of us are team players. And so if you take a moment to dwell on those emotions, especially for someone who's not done it, you may not be able to fly the next day, right? When you are not able to fly, that means one of your buddies who's actually on their weekend has to come in on their weekend to fly for you, because you're not able to take care of yourself. And so that is something that the Air Force is still grappling with. I mean, we're minimum manned. We get the demand. We get the reason why, because folks on the ground are wanting us, and we want to be there for them. So I was doing that for the past, 6 to 7 years before I became an instructor pilot and started to teach other RPA students. Let me switch then to the essentially kind of pre-diagnosis. It's already 2018. I'm already out of the Air Force. I've completed my commission. And I say, hey, Air Force, thank you so much for the opportunities you've given me. But I need to live a normal life. And at this point, my wife and I had been living separately just because of my job. So we got married in 2014. 2018 was the first time we actually lived together in the same house longer than 1 month, right? So I said, well, happy wife, happy life. I better get out and make my wife happy as we kind of restart our marriage and restart our life together here in Dallas. At that point, I started a internship with AT&T on the FirstNet program, and transitioning out of the military was one thing, but I was really excited about civilian life. I loved being a mister because you can do whatever you want apparently, and so I started to go to work. I started to go to the headquarter building here in Dallas. And it took about maybe 3 to 4 months of me just working and not being exposed to the RPA / military lifestyle for the first onset of symptoms to come up. One of the first symptoms that came up, per my wife, was that I started to become just irritable, just out of no reason, right? I mean, I would be doing work, I would get stressed out. I'm normally able to kind of get past that, but 3 months out of the military, 4 months out of the military, my brain is like stuck into aggressive, irritable mode. And my wife, God bless her heart, she's a child psychiatrist, ironically, and she has an obvious sense of, okay, what is Scott doing? I don't want to diagnose him, but she has a pretty good sense of what I'm feeling, which is a blessing, because she was the one that first approached me and said, Scott, I don't know what's going on, but I know that your aura around you is pretty negative most of the time. When you were in the military, you got a little negative, but you're able to kind of work it out, and everything was fine. Mind you, we only spent the weekends together. So I took that feedback and I said, okay, honey, whatever you say. It's one of those things where, you take it and then you kind of just on to the next thing. Well, month 5 passed by. My irritability started to really increase. At this point, I wasn't smiling as much. I still love my job, right? I was still at work. I was super happy, extrovertedness, really enjoyed working for public safety, a new industry that I've never really thought about. Now working for public safety, I was just amazed. But at home, I was totally different. And as time went by, as the time for where I was not attached to the military continued, the worse it got. There was one point in my story where it just clicked. And I pictured it I'm picturing it right now as one of those rainy days. It's 7 p.m. It's thundering outside. We didn't have any kids yet. The lights were down. I go in, and she's in the window crying her heart out for no apparent reason. And I'm like, what are you doing? And as a type A person, or as a fixer-upper, I wanted to know, why are you crying, and how can I fix it right now? Well, she said, Scott, I've been trying to tell you this entire time, or, give you hints, but the person you're becoming is not the person I married. And in my mind's eye, when I look in the mirror, I was the person that she married. And so I had no idea what she was talking about. But that experience of me seeing her in distress and crying just because of me really spoke to me and my heart. And I knew I had some irritability issues that I was dealing with, but not to the extent to which it would be hurting my wife. And so at that point, I started to, I first used my AT&T benefits to talk to a therapist, which, I'm talking to a therapist, let alone a psychiatrist, is something else. I saw myself as a pretty strong person, right? That handled a lot of things. And going to a therapist that first time was a huge gulp of, my pride was really hurting, right? Because it was one of those things where, Scott, you can't really handle yourself, so have someone else talk to you about it. And so at this point, I didn't accept anything. I knew my wife was crying because of me, and because I loved my wife, I wanted to fix it. Well, it took some time of therapy, but up to the point where I got diagnosed, I was just thinking, okay, this is just a mindset type of thing. Maybe I just need to see this in a different light. And that was it. And even after I was diagnosed, she said, hey, you have irritability, but in talking, you also are, you are also depressed. I was like, what? You're also trying to social distance, which in my mind, I had days where I was really just tired and I really didn't want to hang out with friends. This is pre-COVID. And so I kind of chucked it up to that. I said, well, I was just tired. 4, the way you see your life at home is very negative. I said, well, yeah, that's true. And as she started to list all this stuff, I said, wow, that's true too. Anxiety, yes, yeah, that's true. Your head is always in a swivel. Not like Big Brother is looking after you, but like you're always so vigilant, hypervigilance. And I was, and the therapist was just like, I think you got PTSD. And I remember that moment so clearly because I laughed. I said, you got to be joking, right? I mean, I'm fine. And I started to laugh it off. And she said, just come back whenever you want to continue. And I told my wife, and I started laughing. And I was like, can you believe this person telling me that I have PTSD? It's crazy. And really at that point, my brain was not accepting anything. I was so prideful. I didn't know what I was really talking about, nor did I absorb any of the things that the therapist was saying to me. A few days passed by. I'm living with this whole PTSD thing in my brain. I'm somewhat accepting it, but being a planner and planning my future, I was faced with a whole bunch of emotions. My question to myself was this: well, Scott, apparently you got PTSD. Will it affect your work? Yes or no? I don't know. Well, Scott, you have visions of you making it to the executive level. Well, Scott, do you know of any executive that had PTSD? I really didn't at the time, brand new to corporate America. Well, Scott, what would your peers think of you if you had this mental illness, this mental disorder? And I said, I really don't know. And last but not least, what would your family think of you? Would they look at you differently? Would your friends look at you differently? Right? Come promotion, will your supervisor look at you in a different light? Right? Would they say, okay, Scott is ready for a director role or a VP role? They probably wouldn't, because they're saying, well, he's seeing a therapist, so probably that may seem like he can't really handle himself and his crap. In my mind, these emotions and these thoughts were all negative. Why? Because I never had these emotions before. I thought I would look the same, feel the same, and because I was the same as everyone else, I'd have a better chance of making it to the top. Doesn't really make any sense, right? Now, these thoughts continued. It is now about a year in. I've seen the therapist once or twice. I'm still having the same issues. So it was pretty evident that my wife still did not like who I was becoming. So meds started to roll in, and I accepted meds because I said, if my wife is unhappy and if she is always crying because of me, then please fix me, and I will fix all the emotional stuff in the back. And as we turn our story now to post-diagnosis, going into about a year and a few months in, I really started to accept, part of my treatment was really trying to accept PTSD. And the VA, it was a huge source of help. One of my friends said, hey, there is this program, not sponsored by the VA, but it's veteran friendly, where they have service dogs. And service dogs are supposed to alert you if you're going through an episode or a flashback, or if something wrong is happening. I said, well, I guess it would be nice. I guess it would be nice because I could be going into a meeting and I have a flashback or I have some kind of emotional reaction, and I just wouldn't know what to do, right? And in these flashbacks, I remember I looked at my heart rate one time. It shot up to 180 BPM and stayed there for quite some time during one of these episodes. And so I knew maybe a dog would help. So slide, please. And so we have Roy here. Roy, so when the nonprofit trained service dogs first got him, his name was Bix, B-I-X. But when they adopted him, they renamed him Roy after a World War II veteran that was killed in action. I was really looking forward to having a dog because when I was a kid, I really wanted to have a dog. I asked my mom for a dog, and they gave me a rabbit instead. So with Roy, you know, it was awesome because I got to have a service dog and a dog, right? And Roy, his job is to alert me when I am feeling emotionally unstable, right? Because my brain could be right at the moment of, you know, all these trauma, all the trauma pictures that's coming in because we're zoomed in and we're able to see everything. He's able to kind of say, hey, Scott, put your attention on me, and hopefully your intention on me will help you realize that something is going wrong with you. So I accepted Roy with open heart, or with an open heart, and really enjoyed him. But there's one thing now that I faced. Mental illness is normally not visible, for better or worse. And so when you go into a workplace and you have a dog, the disorder becomes visible. And so my brain, thinking ahead, was, okay, Scott, now you have a visible dog with you that says service dog. What are people going to say, right? Are people going to say, I wonder what his problem is. I wonder what he's going through. And I tell you, the first day that I took him to work was very, I was uneasy. My team was knew about him. I'd opened up to them about what I was dealing with, just in case I had to step out of a meeting. They knew that I was dealing with some with a few emotions, and they just left me alone. And I also told them that I got a service dog, and so they were ecstatic. But people outside my team, I remember my first question is, I see you have a dog. I said, yes, sir. Nothing's wrong with you. I don't see anything wrong with you. What's wrong with you? And that was one of the moments where I was like, well, I guess service dogs can help with mobility, right? But service dogs can also help with mental illness, which at that point I took the opportunity to educate that person and try not to take offense. But I got these questions that was just off the wall, that pretty much said, why is there a service dog? I remember one comment as I was passing by. There are these two ladies that said, oh, I wish I can take my pet to work. And I was just like, seriously? And kind of fast forward to today, or before COVID, I took the opportunity to, if I heard a comment like that, I took the opportunity to educate them, because they were really coming to a place where they didn't know. And so fast forward to pre-COVID, everyone now accepts Roy. Everyone loves Roy. By the way, the first time I took him to work, I work on the 16th floor in downtown. It took me 4 hours to get him used to the elevator. Did not like the elevator whatsoever. My boss, SVP, was the person that got FirstNet through Congress. I remember meeting with him in the lobby to talk about, Roy and everything. Roy did not want to go into to the elevator. It took me 4 hours in between calls to get him in there. It's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm trying for like the 8th time. My boss has his salad in hand, lunch in hand, and he is using his salad to get Roy in the elevator. That worked. It worked. But it's just been an awesome opportunity to for him to help me out through these diagnoses. So post-diagnosis, what's happening now? Well, I told myself, I asked myself, Scott, what's your vision for your life? Is there something that there's work, and there's, all of these little hobbies, but is there something that you can see yourself doing? And I'm a person of faith, so that entire time I was in the Air Force, God was saying I was prepping you for something big. Well, being a prideful man, I said, oh, that means I'm going to be a VP one day, and I'm going to be in charge of XYZ, and I'm going to have free parking in downtown, and have an assistant. Well, when I asked that question today, it wasn't the VP opportunity. It wasn't even, all the glitz and glamour. It was, Scott, you are now faced with your own challenges and your own visible challenges of PTSD. What are you going to do with that PTSD? And so I, rather than keeping it a secret, I started to use, I guess, use this opportunity to be a cheerleader for mental health, not only in my life, but in AT&T, not only in AT&T, but hopefully corporate America. And so it was awesome going to the Officer Wellness Forum where I met Jeff at, because it was one of the first opportunities that my leadership said, we will embrace you, whomever you are, and we if possible, we'll use your skills to raise awareness for mental health, not only in corporate America, but for first responders. And I said, first responders, yeah, they we have similarities in our trauma, not the same, but they go out to protect us. They see things, they experience things, and they come back home, and they may not be able to talk about their feelings because those feelings may just kind of be swirling in their head, and they may have to just dig a hole and put those feelings in that hole. And so I was like, that makes sense. And so, I really took that opportunity to tell my story in hopes that just to raise awareness around mental health, PTSD, to hopefully inspire folks. Just because you have a mental disorder does not mean that you are, special. You can actually turn that disorder into something that is inspirational. And there was this one quote, and I'll end on this, that said, that said, you've never heard of anyone, special, or anyone that was important without any special circumstances they went through, right? So all the folks who you look up to, they all went through some turmoil in their life. And so that's certainly true for all the leaders I look up to. And so I'm to bring you up to speed now. This month, in August, has been very, very stressful for me. I wasn't one of those, I have PTSD, I'm getting therapy, medicine, yes, now I'm cured. It's actually the opposite. Because of the medication and the changes in some of the medication, I was actually very, very down. We found out that the medication I was on, Lexapro, I was actually taking a lot of Lexapro to where my body, it calls it like citrulline toxicity, I believe. Maybe Nils can help me out with that. And apparently, if I'm taking too much, it would have an adverse effect to my mood. I was having cognitive disabilities. I couldn't really talk. And you may see remnants of that right now because I'm now kind of getting off of it. And so it's been really rough, but we've now switched medicines. And I think my mood is stabilizing. I'm continuing to go to therapy, and I hope September would be stable for me as far as my mood, as far as the way I'm looking at life, right? So let me end it on that. Jeff or Melissa, Dr. Nils, to you for questions.